Ever wanted to sit on the Iron Throne? And I'm not talking about the toilet. Of course you have. It's Game of Thrones, the board game. Hello, welcome to the Bottled Imp. My name is Ken Boyter and this is a fancy review show. So, welcome. This is our new location temporarily. So we just want to say thank you to Moog for letting us film in this location. Fantastic. Brilliant. So what are we going to do? Of course, we're going to be looking at Game of Thrones, the board game. So let's take a look. Game of Thrones, the board game from Fantasy Flight. What's it all about? Well, the main thing is you get to play one of the houses. So if you like Lannisters, if you like the Baratheons, you can play one of those. It's got 6 houses to play: Martell, Baratheon, Lannister, the Greyjoys, and some other ones, Tyrell. It's got the other ones as well. So you take control of one of the houses and it is your goal, your mission, your life's destiny to unite the land and claim the Iron Throne. So if you played Risk, it's kind of like Risk, but more complex and more enjoyable. You basically have to have 7 castles and or strongholds to win the game. The game takes place over 10 rounds, but if you do get 7 strongholds and or castles, then you, before the end of the 10th round, you win the game immediately. So I'm just going to take a quick look at the actual board. So here we go. The board is beautifully designed. It's very clear. You've got the map here of Westeros. This is the area that you're going to actually put your troops in and you're going to be fighting for each piece of territory. You have, these are the sections here, and I'll just go through them here. This is the round section, very straightforward. You move the little sand timer, there we are, beautifully illustrated. And you move that at the end of the round, and that keeps a note of which round you're on. The next one is the victory points, again very self-explanatory. That keeps a note of how many victory points, i.e. how many castles and or strongholds you own. And again, beautifully illustrated, nice little figurines there, not figurines, little cardboard cutouts of the castles. And the next thing is the supply track. Now the supply track is quite crucial because it determines how many armies you can have. And that's all determined on how many barrels you have, and the barrels are actually on the board. So if you own a territory that has a barrel in, this one has 2 for example, you have 2 barrels. Now you can have various troops spread out all over the board, and then you simply count up how many barrels you have. So for example, if you've got 3 or 4 barrels, then you'll look back on the supply track and you will move your barrel, and again, beautifully illustrated. I don't know if you can see that, it's quite small. It's a barrel shaped token, and that keeps the track of how many armies you can have. So for example, if you had 4 barrels, then you'll be allowed to have an army, 4 separate armies, 2 of which contain 3 units, and 2 of which contain 2 units, but we'll go into a bit more detail a bit later on. The other bit of the board is the influence tracks right here, and these are good fun because you have to bid for these. And we have the Iron Throne, we have the fiefdoms, and we have the King's Court, and they're basically special abilities that you can use throughout the game. So let's go through the rounds. Each round is 10 rounds, as I say, and each round... Oh, there's one more thing I forgot, actually. The Wildlings. This is the Wildlings track. The Wildlings will attack, and collectively you have to defeat them. So this keeps a note of the actual Wildlings and their strength. So here we have the Wildling cards. That's the back of it. And that's the front of it. A bit closer, there we go. And we also have the back of it. Again, beautifully illustrated. That's upside down, I've just noticed that. Anyway, there's the Wildlings track. So that's the board. As I was saying, the rounds. There's 10 rounds, and each round is divided into 3 phases. We have the Westeros phase, the planning phase, and the action phase. Now, the Westeros phase is basically drawing cards. I'm going to put these here. They're like event cards. And we've got 1, 2, and 3. And what you do is you simply flip each of them over to reveal what the event will be. And you flip them all over at the same time. And then, there's a third one, you count up if there's any wildling attack. So for example, let's have a quick look. Yes, so for example, if it has one of that wildling symbol on it, that means that moves up 1 strength. Well, it's actually 2 strength, but it moves up 1 on the track. Then what you do is you resolve them in order. So that was card 1, and you do what it says on the card. That's card 2. Again, you do what it says on the card. And card 3, you do what it says on the card. So it is pretty simple, each phase, each round. But there's more to it than that. Obviously, we then go into the planning phase. Now, each character, you will get tokens. And I'll just remove these so you can see what the tokens are like. You get a plethora of tokens. And these are the planning tokens. So basically, you will have various actions that you can perform, but you need to plan for them. You need to lay down your strategy. So, for example, you have marching, you have raid, there's a raid token. You also have consolidate power, and you have support, and you also have defense. So there's various strategies that you can undertake to try and claim all your strongholds and castles. The other phase that you will be encountering is the action phase. So once you've laid out all your tokens, you will do that in secret, and you get a nice screen. So that's the back of the screen, that's the Lannister one. And in there it tells you exactly what each planning token, which order token, what it does and how to use it. So that's a very handy screen. So you will then be deciding what order tokens to give each of your troops. And then once you've decided, you all flip them over, and then you start the action phase. And so the action phase basically is either you do nothing because you decided to sit there and defend. You can march. Now, if you march into a zone that already has an area that already has troops, then you have to attack that. And you can do other things like raid, and you can do support. So if you've got an area that you know that you're going to be fighting in and you're adjacent to it, you can actually support. So there are various different strategies that you can do. So that's basically the end of the round. The other thing is that, as I say, there's the wildlings. Now they're going to attack, and collectively you have to defend them. You have to defend the realm, and you actually have to attack the wildlings. Now what happens is, over the course of the game, you will be getting these power tokens again. These are the Lannister ones. Each house has them. And what you do is you need to come up with deals. Now, a good part of the game, good strategy, and it's also fun as well, is that, like Game of Thrones, you start making alliances. So you might say, well, yeah, I think we ought to each put in 5 influence tokens to bid, and collectively you need to beat the wildlings. So if the wildling strength was 10, you might say, well, do you know what? I've got loads of power tokens, influence tokens. I'm going to put 8 of those in. So the rest of you can only put 1 or 2 if you like. But obviously, like Game of Thrones, there is betrayal. So you may say you're going to put 5 or 8 in, but in the end, you're only going to put 3. So that's obviously a bit of fun, because you then soon realise who's going to lie and who's going to betray you and who's actually going to be honest. Now, there's a good reason why you'd want to actually beat the wildlings, because the lowest bidder, and I'm not going to read out the details, but the lowest bidder, if you lose, there's a punishment. If you win, everyone else, gets the same kind of punishment. But if the highest bidder, if you win, the highest bidder actually gets a perk. So you may actually want to be the highest bidder. That's the wildlings attacking. So the other thing that we have here is, as I was going to say, I'll go through the influence tracks, because that can make it, that's your special abilities. Basically, you have the Iron Throne. Now, everybody obviously wants to sit on the Iron Throne, and the Iron Throne does two things. What it does is it will allow you to decide ties apart from in fighting. So if, for example, I put 3 influence tokens to bid, and someone else put 3 tokens in, if I was higher up the influence track, so for example here Lannister is higher up, it's number 1, than the Starks, because they're in number 2, then I would choose to win. Equally, if that was a tie, if Martell and the Greyjoy is tied, then as I'm sitting on the Iron Throne, I could decide, well, actually, I want to swap that over. Or if it's a bidding, whoever is the tie, the person that owns the Iron Throne actually gets to decide. The other perk with the Iron Throne is you get to go and do your action phase first. So if you know that you want to go into battle and it's crucial that you go first, then again, you do get to go first. And if you're way down number 6, then you'll be last in doing all your actions. But again, if you know that, you can start planning your strategy around that. The second influence track is the fiefdoms. And that is where you get a sword. Nice shiny sword. Again, 2 perks. You get a +1 in battle. And the other thing is that, if you're higher up, you do also get to choose between ties. So if you tie a battle, then you will obviously be higher up and therefore you win the battle. And the third one is the King's Court. Here you get the Raven, the Messenger Raven, and there's 2 perks to that. One is you can, once you've placed all the orders and you all flip over your order tokens, you can replace one of your order tokens. So if you think, oh, I thought he was going to march, and I actually put a defensive token down because I think he was going to march into me and attack me, I could change that. I could turn that into a marching token and move into him. So that's very handy. And the other thing with the Raven token is if you decide not to do that, you can get to look at the card, the Wildlings card. And again, you're not allowed to read the card out, but you are allowed to sort of lie and say, oh yeah, it's not worth it, it's not worth winning. But then you could then put in more tokens to win. So again, the Raven is very good. It's very strategic in how you play it. So it is, I think that's pretty much everything. The supply track, actually, yes, as I say, that's to do with controlling barrels. And if you have, the more barrels you have, basically the more armies you have. Now, the other thing I need to go through is, very quickly, is we have the troops, the units. That is a soldier, and that costs 1. And then we have the knights, and they have the knights, and they are 2. They're worth 2 to buy. We have the ships, so you can actually go out onto sea, and that's a good mechanic because you can use them to move troops. So for example, if I was have my ships here, I can actually hop over land and actually use them like stepping stones. So ships become very valuable. And the last things are, let's have a look, is the siege engines. And they are worth, in attack, when you're attacking another area with a castle in it, they're worth 4. So these are worth 2 when you attack and defend. These are worth 1 when you attack and defend. Unfortunately, these are worth 0. The siege engines are worth 0 when you defend. But they can be very powerful, obviously, when you attack. Now, the other thing is it's 3 to 6 players, but you can play with fewer people. And they've got a nice little mechanism here. So you modify the influence tracks. If it's a 3-player game, then you will modify it. And the other thing is, obviously, they close down some of the map and they put other tokens on. So, for example, if it's a 3-player game, they may close these areas down. And so if you need to attack this, then there's already something there and you have to attack it, and that's worth 6. So again, a nice little mechanic. If there's 4 players, that would be worth 3. and what's that, 4 to 6 players. So overall, they've done a fantastic job with Game of Thrones, the board game. All the components are amazing, good quality. You get loads of stuff. You can play up to 6 players. And so, as you've probably guessed, it's a mid to heavyweight strategy game. If you're new to board games, I would either recommend watching lots of different reviews of this game and how to play it and then get stuck in, or you might want to start out with some other games first and then kind of build yourself up into playing this. Because I think if you love Game of Thrones but you're not used to board games, you might be a bit overwhelmed about how all the mechanics work together. I really love it. We've played it loads and we really love it. The good thing about it is I love the interaction because you can set up deals. Like the last game I played, my son and my brother and his girlfriend, they actually all ganged up to try and beat me, but I won in the end. And that just made the victory extra sweet. I love the fact that you have to plan and you can be sitting there really planning loads of strategic moves, and then it all goes wrong and then you have to replan so you can change your plans halfway through. It's a brilliant game, really entertaining, thoroughly recommend it. Go out and play it. Game of Thrones, brilliant. What can I say? Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed our review. Can I just also say that the theme of the board game is amazing. They've not just stuck Game of Thrones over a board game, they've really thought about how the theme and the mechanics in the board game actually interacts. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. Leave some comments if you've played the game, let me know what you think of it. If not, thoroughly recommend it. You can subscribe to our channel, please do so. Obviously, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. So, until next time, you bloodthirsty imps, enjoy another review next Friday.